The static on the line was nothing compared to the ringing in my ears as my father's words registered through the phone. "You need to come home next weekend. Vanessa's parents want to meet the whole family." My screen flashed with an incoming email, the mortgage pre-approval I'd been waiting for. 6 months in Oregon. 6 months of silence from the people who were supposed to love me. 6 months of not being missed, not being looked for, not being thought of, until they needed something. The cursor hovered over the accept button for my dream home as my father continued talking about appearances and family obligations. I felt my hand tighten around the phone until my knuckles turned white. The pressure was building behind my eyes as 29 years of invisibility crystallized into perfect clarity. "I make more money than all of you combined," I said, my voice steadier than it had any right to be. The silence on the other end felt like the first honest thing my father had given me in years. "My name is Ruby. I'm 29, and I build digital fortresses for a living. This is the story of how I became visible by disappearing. For as long as I could remember, I'd been the extra in my family's portrait. Quiet, invisible, acceptable only when useful. My brother Lincoln was the sun, the center, the reason the camera flashed. I was background. When I was 8, I made honor roll for the 3rd time in a row. I laid the report card neatly on the kitchen table where I knew my mother would sit down with her tea. She glanced at it once and said, "Good job, honey," without looking up from her phone. That same week, Lincoln got a C+ on a math quiz and still got to pick dinner. The year I won first place in the regional science fair, I came home with a trophy, half my height. My teacher had pulled me aside that morning and said I should be proud. I was. I wanted them to be too. At dinner, I placed the trophy on the counter. My father said, "Let's not make a big deal out of it, Ruby. Your brother has finals." That was the year I stopped bringing awards home. By the time I turned 17, I knew I'd be paying for college myself. I got into a state school with a scholarship, picked up 2 part-time jobs, and stopped coming home for breaks. It was easier that way, cleaner. I graduated early, moved into a shared apartment, took whatever freelance work I could find. My resume grew faster than my social life, but I didn't mind. Work was something I could control. Work didn't forget me at the dinner table. Eventually, I landed a job with a cybersecurity firm based in Seattle. Remote, flexible hours, full benefits. I'd been there almost 3 years now. My boss said I had a knack for untangling the chaos that other engineers overlooked. My savings account had commas in it. My fridge had real food. My inbox had a pre-approval letter from a mortgage broker. I was finally thinking about buying a house. Nothing big, just mine. So when my father's voice tried to pull me back into obligation, into performances dressed as family duties, I didn't flinch. I just let the silence stretch long enough to make it clear I wasn't coming. "You need to come home next weekend." That was the first thing he said. Not hello, not how have you been, just a directive delivered like I was still 18 and waiting for permission to breathe. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Why? There was a pause. I could practically hear him rolling his eyes through the phone. "Your brother's engagement dinner. Vanessa's parents want to meet the whole family. They're very traditional." Of course, not a reunion, not a reconnection, just another image to maintain, a daughter-shaped placeholder at the table to round out the illusion of family. "I won't be there." Another pause, sharper this time. "What do you mean you won't be there?" "I mean exactly that. I have other plans." "Ruby, this is important for your brother's future. They're high-profile people. It'll reflect badly on us if you don't show up." There it was, us, not me, not how I was doing or where I'd been, just the optics. "I moved to Oregon 6 months ago," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not flying across the country for a dinner I wasn't even invited to until now." Silence, the kind that isn't quiet at all, but charged like air before a storm. "You moved to Oregon? Without telling us?" "You didn't know where I was before. Why would this be different?" His voice dropped low and tight. "How dare you move without telling your family? What's your address?" I almost laughed. "Do you even remember my last one?" He didn't answer right away, and that told me everything. "That's not the point." It's exactly the point, I said. You're not asking because you care. You're asking because now it's inconvenient not to know. Ruby, this isn't how families work. No, I said, but it's how ours always has. I hung up. My hand didn't even shake. For a moment, I just sat there letting the silence rush back in. Then the screen lit up again. Missed call, then another. Then a text from him, from my mother, then Lincoln. I didn't answer any of them. I just turned off my phone, made myself tea, and stood on the balcony watching the light drain from the sky. By the next morning, the texts had turned from reminders into guilt, and from guilt into threats. By the end of the week, I'd received 6 voicemails, 11 texts, and 2 emails with subject lines like, "Can we talk?" and "Family should stick together." My mother finally called. Her voice was tight with restraint, like she was trying to sound warm without dropping the script. "Sweetheart, this isn't like you. You've always been so respectful. Your brother's counting on you. Vanessa's parents are formal people. We need to show unity." Unity, a word that means nothing when it's only summoned for guests. "I'm not going," I said simply. "Ruby, don't be difficult." "I'm not. I'm being honest." She sighed, frustrated. "It's just one dinner. You don't have to stay long. Smile, say a few words, and then you can disappear again if that's what you want." "You mean like I already have?" Another silence. Then she hung up. Lincoln tried next. His tone was different, less forceful, more confused. "Look, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom and Dad, but can't you just show up? For me?" I almost felt something, almost, but I remembered all the years he looked away while I was overlooked. "No," I said, "not this time." The next day, my father called again. His voice had shed the pretense. "If you don't show up to this dinner," he said, "you're out of the will." I let the silence stretch just long enough to give him hope I was weighing it. Then I said calmly, clearly, "I make more money than all of you combined." I could hear him inhale like he'd been slapped. "You're bluffing." "If you'd ever asked about my life," I said, "you'd know I'm not." He didn't respond. He just hung up. That was the last call I took. From that point on, I watched the messages come in like waves, first urgent, then desperate, then angry again. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I opened a new tab on my laptop and clicked back to the real estate listing I'd saved the week before. It was still there. 3 bedrooms, cedar siding, room for a garden. Grandma Olivia called the next morning just as the sky turned pink behind the trees. She never waited for permission, never checked if I was free. She just called, and I always answered. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, voice steady with that mix of gentleness and knowing. "How's the air up there today?" "Cool and quiet," I said, "like I like it." We talked for a few minutes about the lavender I'd planted on the balcony, about the deer that sometimes wandered behind the apartment. Then she paused. "They asked me to call you," she said, not apologizing, just stating the fact. "I figured," I said. "Let me guess. Convince me to come back and play the part." "They didn't use those words." She paused. "But yes, your mother's been pacing. Your father's in a mood. They're panicking." "Because they miss me?" I asked, knowing the answer. She hesitated just long enough. "Because Vanessa's parents are watching and asking questions." I laughed under my breath. Of course. My value had finally surfaced, tied neatly to someone else's expectations. "I'm not going, Grandma." "I know," she said. "I wouldn't either." That's why I always picked up. She didn't sugarcoat things. She didn't make excuses for them or pretend the past hadn't happened. She remembered my birthdays, sent me postcards from her little trips, asked about my job, and actually listened to the answers. She was the only one who ever looked directly at me and saw more than what I could offer. "I just wanted you to hear it from someone honest," she said, "not because I think you owe them anything." "Thank you," I said. "Are you okay?" "I am," I said, and I meant it. "Really?" I stayed on the phone with her until the tea in my mug went cold. She asked about the house I was looking at and whether I planned to paint the walls or leave them plain. We talked about furniture and fig trees and things that had nothing to do with obligation. By the time we said goodbye, the sun was warming the windows, and I had already opened the mortgage calculator again. The next afternoon, I received an email from a name I didn't recognize, Vanessa Parks. Lincoln must have shared my email address with her from our old holiday communications. The subject line read simply, "About this weekend." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. "Ruby, we haven't met, but I'm marrying your brother. I wanted to reach out directly because I'm confused. Your parents told me you were ill, then working, then at a conference. But last night, my mother noticed how your father changed the subject every time she asked about you. Lincoln won't talk about it either. I get the sense there's something deeper happening. If you're uncomfortable coming to the dinner, I understand. But I'd like to know why my future husband has a sister no one mentions. I don't mean to intrude, but family means everything to me. I can't ignore the feeling that something's not right here. If you're willing to talk, I'd appreciate it. Either way, I hope you're well. Vanessa." I read it twice, then a third time. The words slipped past my defenses. Direct, sincere, observant. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before I began typing. "Vanessa, thank you for reaching out. The truth is simple. I've been invisible to my family for as long as I can remember. 6 months ago, I moved across the country. Until this dinner became important to them. No one noticed I was gone. No calls, no texts, not even questions about why my birthday card was returned undelivered. I won't be at the dinner, but not because of you. I've spent my life showing up for people who couldn't see me. I'm done performing family for an audience. If my brother loves you, I hope he treats you better than the women in his family have been treated. And if you're building a life with him, I hope you go in with eyes open. I wish you well, Ruby." I didn't expect a response, but one came within the hour. "That explains a lot. Thank you for your honesty. I have more questions if you're willing to answer them sometime. V." I closed my laptop without replying. The ball was in my court now, and for once I wasn't rushing to pick it up. That night, I applied for the mortgage. My fingers didn't hesitate on a single field. The dinner day came and went without me. I spent the morning on a trail just outside Lithia Park, weaving between tall trees and early spring wildflowers. The silence out there wasn't empty. It was earned. I didn't check my phone. I didn't wonder what was happening on the other side of the country. I breathed deeply, let the wind move around me, and kept walking. When I got home that evening, there was a missed call from Grandma Olivia. I called her back before even taking off my boots. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "You enjoying your mountaineer day?" "Every second," I said. She exhaled slowly. "Well, the dinner happened." I waited. "It was tense," she said. "The kind of tension that looks polite on the outside but makes your neck stiff just sitting in the same room." "Sounds familiar." I paused. "Wait, how do you know what happened?" She chuckled softly. "Vanessa's grandmother and I go to the same bridge club. She called me right after the dinner. Your parents did their best to keep it together, but Meredith couldn't stop fidgeting. Your father barely spoke. Vanessa's mother kept glancing around like she was waiting for someone." "Me?" "Yes, and when she realized you weren't coming, she asked why." I closed my eyes, let the moment land. "What did they say?" "They tried different versions. First they said you were sick, then that work had called you away, then that you were traveling for some conference." "All lies." Vanessa's mother knew it. You could see it in her face. She pressed harder, asked why you hadn't been at the engagement party either, asked why she only found out you existed a few weeks ago, and apparently she had a private conversation with your mother after the rehearsal dinner. No one knows exactly what was said, but your mother came out of it pale and quiet. I think she got read like a book. I almost smiled. "What about Lincoln?" He looked distracted all night, kept checking the door, never smiled long. Vanessa looked upset through most of the ceremony. I don't think she bought the family portrait they were trying to paint. I sat down at the kitchen table, letting that sink in. Not out of malice, just the kind of satisfaction that comes from truth finally catching up to the noise. "They still think this is about a dinner party," I said. I know, she replied. But Vanessa's parents saw it, Ruby. The imbalance, the omissions, the damage. We talked for another 10 minutes about nothing in particular. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and scrolled through new listings. The house I'd been eyeing was still available. I bookmarked it again just in case. A week after the dinner, Grandma Olivia called again. I was in the middle of unpacking a box labeled Kitchen, Fragile, when the phone lit up with her name. They're still talking about it, she said, without needing to explain what it was. Vanessa's parents? Yes, they've asked Lincoln directly now, why you weren't involved, why no one mentioned you until the last minute, why you've disappeared. And what did he say? He tried to downplay it at first, but I think even he's starting to realize it's not just going away. Vanessa's mother doesn't like being lied to. I set down a stack of plates and leaned against the counter. Is the marriage already cracking? There's tension, the kind that doesn't fade with a honeymoon. I didn't feel glee. I didn't want things to fall apart for him. I just felt still, like watching ripples in a pond after dropping a single stone. They've started asking around, Grandma said. Your parents wanting to know who might have your new number, your address. They even asked me again. You didn't tell them, right? Of course not. I told them if you wanted to talk to them, you would. I breathed out slowly. Thank you. They're nervous, she continued. Not just about you, about what Vanessa's parents might do, what they might say, what this might mean for Lincoln's future. They're worried about damage control, I said, not about me. Yes, she said quietly, but they're starting to realize this doesn't just disappear. The way they treated you, it left marks. I looked around the small kitchen. Sunlight on the counters, new dish towels folded by the sink, a window above the stove that overlooked a row of pines. This wasn't just where I lived, it was mine. They're the ones who disappeared, I said. They just didn't notice until someone else did. She didn't reply right away, but I could hear the pride in her silence, the kind that never had to be spoken out loud. 3 days later, an email arrived from Vanessa again. Ruby, I hope this isn't unwelcome. Things have been tense since the dinner. Your parents are acting like nothing happened, but my mother won't let it go. She keeps asking questions I can't answer. Lincoln finally admitted that no one has spoken to you in months. He seemed surprised when I asked why, like it had never occurred to him to wonder. I'm questioning everything now. The family I thought I was marrying into feels like a carefully arranged photograph with pieces missing. My parents are suggesting we postpone the wedding. They say families that keep secrets keep other things too. I don't know what to do, but I keep thinking about your email, about being invisible in your own family. I can't unsee it now. Vanessa. I read it twice, then once more. Her words carried no manipulation, no guilt, just genuine confusion. I hesitated, then replied. Vanessa, I spent years trying to be seen in that family. I achieved perfect grades, won competitions, graduated early, built a career, and none of it mattered. The day I stopped trying to earn their attention was the day I started becoming myself. I didn't disappear to punish them. I disappeared because staying visible required too much of me and gave back too little. If Lincoln and my parents are struggling now, it's not because I left. It's because someone finally noticed the empty space I occupied for 29 years. Whatever you decide about the wedding, make sure it's for you, not for appearances. Some family portraits look perfect until you notice the daughter's eyes never smile. Ruby. I didn't expect what happened next. 2 days later, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. Ruby. Lincoln's voice sounded different, smaller, uncertain. I said nothing, just waited. I got your number from Vanessa. She said she's been emailing you. She has. The silence stretched between us, years wide. Vanessa's parents want to cancel the wedding, he finally said. They think our family is dishonest. Aren't we? That's not fair. When's my birthday, Lincoln? Another silence. It's in spring. It's November 12th. I'm a Scorpio. Mom's allergic to shellfish. Dad hates jazz music. I graduated summa cum laude. I speak conversational Japanese. I've never broken a bone. My favorite color is green. I'm allergic to penicillin. Ruby. These are things family members know about each other. Basic things. Things that matter when you care about someone. You don't know them because you never asked. None of you did. I could hear him breathing on the other end. I didn't realize. That's the problem. You didn't realize I was gone until someone else noticed I was missing. A long pause. What do I do? For the first time in our conversation, something in me softened, not toward him, but toward the truth I was finally speaking. That depends on what you want, Lincoln. If you want to save your wedding, be honest with Vanessa's family about ours. If you want to know me, start by seeing me. If you want to keep pretending we're something we're not, then don't call again. Can I come see you? Talk in person? No, I said firmly. I'm not ready for that. I have a life here, one that doesn't include performing family reunions. Then what? You just disappear forever? And there it was, the framing that made him comfortable, the narrative where I was irrational, difficult, punishing. This isn't punishment, Lincoln. It's consequence. You can't ignore someone for years and then demand they show up when it's convenient. That's not how relationships work. But we're family, he said, like the word itself was enough. Family is more than DNA and dinner parties, I replied. It's showing up when it doesn't benefit you. It's remembering birthdays and asking questions and caring about the answers. It's making space for someone even when they're inconvenient or different. We've never been that kind of family. We could try, he said quietly. You could, I agreed, but not because Vanessa's parents are threatening to cancel a wedding, not because you suddenly need something from me. You'd have to want it for its own sake. I do, he said, but his voice wavered. Then prove it. Not today, not in a grand gesture. Prove it over time, like trust is built. Learn who I am, see me clearly, acknowledge what happened, and maybe someday we can try again. Will you talk to Vanessa's parents? Explain that this isn't about them? I almost laughed. No, Lincoln, I won't clean up this mess for you. If you want to marry Vanessa, you need to be honest with her family. Tell them the truth, that you've been part of a family that didn't value all its members equally, that you're beginning to see it now, that you want to do better. The silence that followed felt different, less defensive, more considering. I never meant to make you feel invisible, he finally said. I know, I replied. That's what made it worse. After we hung up, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. My phone pinged with a text from Grandma Olivia. You okay? Better than okay, I replied, and I meant it. That night, I finished unpacking the kitchen and lit a candle by the sink. The house already felt like home. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. My father's blocky, careful print, like he thought neatness could cover history. Grandma Olivia had mentioned that he'd asked around for my address. I guess he finally got it from the mortgage company's public records or hired someone to find me. I stood at the mailbox for a long moment, the envelope heavy despite its weight. I didn't bring it inside. I walked straight to the fire pit in the backyard, struck a match, and dropped it in. The paper curled inward, blackened, then disappeared into ash. I already knew how it ended. The next morning, I signed the final paperwork for the house. 3 weeks after applying for the mortgage, it was officially mine. My name on every line. No cosigner, no conditions, just mine. Theo and May texted about flights for next month. They wanted to see the place and help me plant the first flowers. I'd already cleared a corner of the yard for tomatoes in time. Later that evening, after returning home from signing the paperwork, I registered for a graduate course in digital forensics. Not because I needed it, just because I could. I changed my phone number the same week. Only a handful of people got the new one. Olivia, my boss, Theo, May. That was enough. No more surprise calls. No more texts asking for favors disguised as obligations. No more family dinners where my name was an afterthought. The house was quiet, not lonely, just honest. 6 months later, after moving into my new house, my backyard was filled with voices and the smell of roasted corn and grilled peaches. Theo and May, my closest friends from college who now lived in California, were visiting for the weekend. Theo was manning the grill like it was a science experiment. May balanced a pitcher of sangria in one hand and a stack of mismatched cups in the other. The folding table overflowed with potluck dishes. Quiche, sesame noodles, a suspicious-looking casserole someone insisted was a family recipe. A neighbor's golden retriever flopped at my feet. Across the yard, my co-worker's daughter, Marin, tugged at my sleeve and handed me a plastic bracelet she'd made from string. "You're my aunt now," she said solemnly, "but the fun kind." "I'll take that," I said, slipping it on. Later, as twilight settled in, someone I barely knew from the next street over asked, "Do you have family back east?" I didn't hesitate. "Not anymore." There was a beat of quiet, and then I smiled, gesturing to the table where Theo was laughing so hard he'd spilled lemonade on his shirt, where May was dancing barefoot to a playlist I didn't even know I had. "But I have this," I said, and I meant it. When everyone had left and the yard was quiet again, I gathered the plates, folded the chairs, and stood at the edge of the garden with the string bracelet still on my wrist. Fireflies blinked near the fence. My house glowed softly behind me. It wasn't perfect. It was better. It was mine. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.